So in this short video I'm going to show you how to use the dependent line editing functionality of the Smart Edit line editor function. And so to start off with, I'm going to create some lines using Smart Draw, and I'm going to start off by saying we're going to give this a 3D line, so we're going to pick up 3D elevation, 3D Auto 3D here, and we're going to put it on layer 0 for now. That's fine. And we're going to call this one, let's call it top backer curb, and we're going to start off just by drawing a line. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick a line here and give it an elevation of 100, and then I'm going to come due east here and let's say go a little bit further than this, say to here, and let's say that's got an elevation of 101. And I'm going to put a curve in here going around a curve return, let's say 102, and let's say we go up here and let's say that's 104, and now we do another curve coming around here, and let's say we keep going along here, let's say it's dead flat there, and then come back around a curve here somewhere, let's say we're coming back downhill again to here, and then let's say one more curve here, and we'll come along here. Okay, so we've got a curb line, a top backer curb line, and now let's say we want to run our multi-offset line command, so I'm going to run that up now. And in multi-offset line I'm going to pick a template in here, which is my curb template, which is just going from, I'm going to pick this line here, and the curb template basically is set up for offsets to the right hand side of this line. You've got a series of offsets and a series of elevation differences or slope differences between the nodes to create you the curb shape all the way to the edge of pavement. And at this point we're going to say put these using this offsets lines point creator style, using the horizontal optimization to make sure we end up with curves in the lines. And then we're going to do internal corners, external corners by this method. So we hit save here, and then we're just going to hit the apply button, and that's going to create me the offset lines for the curb. Now that's great, everything is now perfectly 3D, so if we now look at that in the 3D view and we take a look at this, you can see that we've got our curb and gutter, and we could have a sidewalk and other things as part of that. But the challenge now is, of course, if you find that you fat fingered an elevation somewhere, or you want to add an elevation in somewhere because you were given a node or where a contour crosses and you need to kind of add extra elevation, then how do you do that? So we're going to go into Smart Edit, and in this mode we're going to pick the line editor, and we're going to pick the same source line that we started with. So we're going to pick this line that we started out with, and we're going to go into the vertical editor, and we're going to say we're going to add nodes, and we're going to use the dependent line function. And the dependent line function allows me to pick a series of offset lines. In this case I've got from here, I've got to the top face of curb, the flow line, and then here I've got the edge of pave, or lip of curb, and then the edge of pavement line. And I want to elevate all of these lines when I edit an elevation on the source line. And so you can either edit an elevation or you can add elevation. So I've picked these, and what it's going to ask me for is it asks me for a move tolerance, and I'm going to say use a foot here for now. What that means is if I change an elevation on this line and there's elevations on these other lines, if they're within a tolerance it will modify them. If they're not in tolerance it will leave them alone. So as if there's a point more than a foot down the line here, it wouldn't be affected by a change to this elevation, but if they're within a foot of each other then they would get modified. And then you can say the elevation location, so you can pick a location on the line where you think that the offsets and elevations are representative of what these offsets should be. So I'm going to pick a point here, and at that point now it's elevated each of the ends of the lines to lock those in, so both ends now got elevated if they weren't already. And in that point now I can go in and say I want to add, let's say I want to start off by I want to add an elevation. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to pick a location here. Now this was about 100 up here I think, and this line up here was 101, just to kind of give you an idea. So I'm going to click on a point somewhere in the middle here and say that's 100.7. So I'm going to click here and type 100.7. Now down in this window here it tells me what all the offsets were and the elevation differences were of each of the dependent lines. So when I make a point here with this elevation, I press the enter key, you'll see that it adds elevations on all of these lines, and these elevation deltas are the same elevation deltas as per the original location where I told it to calculate the elevation. So the geometry between these should now be the same. If you now go into another point here, and let's say I click here, and let's do this one as 100.9, again I've added the elevations into those. Now that's adding elevations. If I come into a curve, I can put in this elevation right here is at 101, and so if I come up here and want to put an elevation in somewhere along this line, I can say that elevation there is, let's say, 101.5, and that will put elevations and breaks into each of these curves. So now these curves are now split into two elevation locations, so we've got elevations across these lines here. Now these have been added as VPIs in here, so that they're not affecting the horizontal geometry, but if you want to, you can then convert them to 3D nodes, and that would then split the geometry into two halves. If you find then that you made a mistake and you want to move a node a little bit, then you can switch to edit mode, and if you click on an elevation in the source location, and then you can say, well, okay, I don't want to just change the elevation. That would allow you to just change the elevation here, and it would affect all of these. So if I change this to 100.5, you'll see that each of the elevations in the offsets all got modified. If you go in and say, I want to move the location of this node, and you can move it back along the line to somewhere else, keep the elevation the same maybe, or you maybe want to change it. So I'm going to change it to 100.45 and click here. Now it would move all of the dependent line elevations along the line as well. Same applies if you delete the VPI. So if you pick a VPI here and you're in the edit mode, you can click on the delete key, and that will delete all of the VPIs at that same location. So by doing this, you can modify the elevations of multiple offset lines all at the same time. And when you look at that in 3D, you'll find now that where you added those elevations, the geometry between them is still the same as they were on the original locations, but now you've got everything calculating out and holding your geometry according to what you wanted. So if I now build a surface model out of those, and then pick these lines here and say, okay, add. Now we've got our curb and gutter section, and each of those edits we made is making the same edits to the lines all the way along here, so we're keeping the geometry consistent between all of those lines as we make those edits into the main line. So it's a pretty powerful tool for editing and fixing up or modifying line elevations where you want to move them, edit them, delete them, or add extra insertion point elevations to modify the elevation of a line, set of lines. Okay, thanks.